On the 29th of May in 1913, Igor Stravinsky debuted what would be one of his most well-known compositions. At the time, Stravinsky was an up-and-coming composer, and his piece showed it. It was a little unique. You see, at the time, most ballets were elegantly choreographed and full of beautiful harmonies and classical arrangements. Stravinsky's piece uses intentionally inharmonic notes and was choreographed around largely pagan themes. It was quite a unique piece, and the audience reaction was a bit unique too. You see, from some of the opening notes of the piece, audience members began to state their displeasure. They began to boo. And supporters of Stravinsky tried to rally and shout down the boos. And those two camps eventually got into heated fistfights. That fistfight turned into an all-out riot in the theater. Parisian police had to intervene to calm the crowd just to let the performance go on. And when it did go on, there were more boos, more shouting, more fistfights, more riots, two in the same performance. Stravinsky himself had to flee the theater for his own safety before the performance even ended. History would eventually vindicate Stravinsky. Most of you know him. He's well known, he's widely regarded. His performance of The Rite of Spring is now usually performed without a riot. In fact, what drove an adult audience mad is now shown to children around the world, as Walt Disney chose The Rite of Spring to be a part of the soundtrack to Fantasia. While Stravinsky's first reaction was unique, that reaction in and of itself is not actually that unique. It turns out most of the time when a great idea gets presented to the world, the initial reaction is rejection. There's a saying that if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. It's a hopeful saying, it's catchy. It's also a load of rubbish. I've been studying creativity and innovation for the past several years, and one of the things I found is that the people who have presented their great idea to the world don't believe in the saying anymore. The people who still believe in the saying, they have yet to present the world with their great idea. Take the actual mousetrap. There are 4,400 patents on mousetraps that have been issued by the US Patent Office. Every year, 400 new designs are submitted, presumably better mousetraps. And yet, of those thousands of designs, only 20 have been developed into a commercially viable product. The one we're all thinking of, the Looney Tunes spring-loaded mousetrap, that was issued a patent in 1899. Despite a century of better mousetraps, we've yet to depart from a century-old standard. Why do great ideas get rejected? You see, there's the literal mousetrap and its story, but history is filled with dozens of metaphorical mousetraps. It was Xerox that invented the interface for the personal computer. They failed to see its potential. They allowed others to develop it. It was Kodak that invented the digital camera, but they didn't recognize its potential. They let other people develop the product that led to their bankruptcy. In government, it was Admiral William S. Sims who developed a better way for gunships to target enemies that improved accuracy and reduced waste. But it was rejected 13 times before an appeal to the president finally got his system implemented. Walt Disney, the man who vindicated Stravinsky, his proposal for Disneyland was rejected by 302 bankers. And this isn't a new phenomenon either. In ancient history, Socrates actually argued against the idea of writing information down in books as a useful means for conveying knowledge. It's kind of ironic, actually, that someone wrote it down, otherwise we wouldn't know that he was against it. So why do great ideas get rejected? Well, for an idea to be great, for it to be innovative, for it to be creative, it has to satisfy two qualities. It has to be new, and it has to be useful. And it turns out we have a terrible time reconciling these two things. When an idea is new, it's unknown. It threatens the status quo of the old, and it's the old that we use to judge whether or not something's useful. So when we attempt to judge a new idea based on the paradigm of the old idea, we end up not seeing the potential in the new idea. There's actually psychological evidence that supports this idea. A team of researchers led by Jennifer Mueller at the University of Pennsylvania recently published an interesting study where they took two groups of people, and to one group they said, "Thank you very much for participating, here's how long it'll take, here's how much you'll be paid, and here are your experiments." To another group they said the exact same thing, except they left a little bit of uncertainty about how or how much they'd be paid for participating. Then they took both groups, they gave them the same two tests. In the first test, everyone was shown pairs of phrases on a computer screen. And these phrases were built from either words that either blended creative and practical concepts and good and bad concepts. So at any given time, you would see a computer screen that said things like useful war or bad sunlight. And you would be asked to pick which one do you favor. The idea is to tap into your subconscious and see what you implicitly associate with those concepts. The test is called an implicit associations test. The second test was a little less subtle. It's actually called an explicit associations test. And it just says, on a scale of 1 to 7, what do you think about creativity? On a scale of 1 to 7, what do you think about practicality? And therein lies the comparison. What do we explicitly say about a concept, and what do we implicitly believe in our subconscious? It turns out the group that was given specific details and participated in the experiment with no uncertainty, they said, we value creative and new and great ideas. And implicitly, they tended to favor those. But the uncertainty group, the group given just a tiniest fraction of uncertainty in their payment, they said that they loved these explicit creative ideas. And yet, implicitly, they failed to favor those creative ideas. So we have a difficult time reconciling the new and the useful, but we need to reconcile the new and the useful. We live in a world marked by uncertainty. We face complex challenges that need new and innovative solutions. We have conversations going on across the globe about creative and innovative ideas. In education, we want to know, how do we keep schools from killing the creativity of our students? How do we raise up a generation of more innovative students? In business, we ask the exact same questions. We ask, how can we make our team create innovative ideas that build a sustainable competitive advantage? But perhaps we don't need more great ideas. Perhaps we just need to get better at recognizing the great ideas that are being presented to us. See, the implications of Mueller's research are significant for a variety of people. If you're the one with the great idea, then I hate to break this to you, but the world's probably going to reject it. See, if you build a better mousetrap, the world probably won't beat a path to your door. It will probably beat your idea down or ignore you. Take heart, though. Persist. All of those metaphorical mousetraps were eventually adopted. We have personal computers. The Navy uses the system that Sims invented. We have books where we read the words of Socrates, or we pretend to read the words of Socrates, and then we put it on our shelf. All of the great ideas initially get accepted. If you're the one being presented great ideas, then the implications are even greater for you. The burden is great for you. You see, when you're presented with that new idea, you have to ask yourself, how am I viewing this idea? Am I clinging to a status quo that's not helping our problems anymore? Is this bias coming through? And this is a bias that we all share. We are all afflicted with it. And we all have to ask, am I valuing the old at the expense of the new? See, I believe that the world is full of creative ideas, and I believe there's merit to coming up with more creative ideas. But I believe we have to recognize the ideas that we already have. I believe we need to share ideas worth spreading. But even more so, we need people who will spread those ideas. Thank you.